All right, guys, here we are. It's the final day before Oscar nominations are out, and the final shot to get in there to say who's in and who's out for this year's Academy Award nominations. So, that being said, I had shot a video on Saturday as kind of like a backup in case I got back late and I didn't have time to make any updates or anything, or I didn't get a chance to look at stuff again between Saturday and Tuesday. So I do have that. But, of course, that's never going to see the light of day, because on top of the changes that I made between the last video and that one, there were a couple more I made on Sunday night, last night. So, that being said, we're going to go ahead. I do have my predictions all printed out here, so we are going to go ahead and they are alphabetical on this list. My version of alphabetical, which is a little different than I think how the Academy is going to do it, but it's just easier for my eyes to go that way, the way I have them here. So you'll see a couple things where it's like, if the film starts with the and then just one word, I count it as like a T, like the would be the first word in it. If it's the blank blank, then I just go with whatever the first word is after the. It's a weird thing, but the and anything like that I put alphabetically first, though I don't do the same rule. So it's my version. There might be I've probably explained this a few times, but to the new folks out there that haven't caught the last few years, that's why. Anyways, and I should say actually before that, though, before we get into the final predictions, there was one more film which is up, I think, going to be up for Best Picture and get a few other things that I did actually get a chance to see on Friday night. Avatar: The Way of Water. I actually finally saw it, and just to recap again really quick, the first Avatar I'm okay with. It's all right. It's not great, like outstanding filmmaking. I don't think for Cameron's stuff. I mean, obviously you go to a lot of his earlier stuff first. Titanic is good, not wonderful, not I don't think I would have given it 11 Oscars myself. For myself, I'd say L.A. Confidential was the best picture that year. Good Will Hunting I thought was even better, and then better than Titanic, I should say. So Titanic would be my third place vote that year for Best Picture. Now, other categories I can definitely say, oh yeah, Titanic would have won like visual effects and probably like costume design or something like that. Maybe not production design. That one I would have given to L.A. Confidential for sure in a heartbeat. But that being said, I still enjoy Titanic. I've kind of come around to it. I think I've explained this earlier in the year, so I'm just trying to recap it as quickly as I can. So the first Avatar I'm okay with. I have to say, I don't know if I just went in with lowered expectations or what, but this second Avatar, Way of Water, superior in every way to the first Avatar. I loved it. Surprisingly, I loved it. I thought the action was better. The characters were better. I didn't give a shit who lived and who died at the end of the first Avatar. This time I gave a shit. I was like, I don't want the main characters, Neytiri or Jake Sully, to die. I think it's her name, right? Neytiri? Something like that? The Zoe Saldana character. And I don't think it's a big giveaway, but it's like they have kids in this film. They have a few kids, so it's like you don't want the kids to die. And when they get in danger's way, you're like, oh, the tension gets elevated a little bit, and it works. Right off the bat, though, one thing that very much bothered me, though, the villain, which I don't think it's a big giveaway because they've been saying it for years, but it's the same villain as the first film. He's back. How they explain it, how it works, is bullshit, and just completely like what are you doing? Just didn't make sense at all, was against everything that character was in the first film, and it was like the dumb... I literally said out loud, I was like, this is so dumb. I said it out. So that was in the first like 5-10 minutes, so I'm like, oh boy, I was like, that is not a great way to start this film. But after that, it picked up, it moved on. I also thought when we got to the final act and the kind of final conflict, which is scaled down a little bit from the first film, which I enjoyed, because at the end of the first film, I was like, it wasn't chaotic, but I was like, okay, it's a big battle. This time it's a little bit more simplified a little bit, which again really benefits you when you do have characters you care about. It's a much better scale, I think, in that way. It works better as a film that way. But it did drag on a little bit. There's one element to it, and then they add another element to it, and it's like that second element, which takes like 20 minutes, it feels like. Just by that point, I was starting to get a little tired of it. The very ending I loved, and actually almost made me emotional. It actually really worked. And then one other thing, there is one kind of like how the forest is burning at the start of the third act of the first film, and they take time to kind of show all that stuff and like boo-hoo on man and stuff. There's another very obvious scene here about toward the start of the third act, end of the second act kind of area in there. that also I think they drug on a little too long, and also very much like the first film, it's all about money, all bad sky people bad and everything, humans all bad. It's just comes down to money. It was a real missed opportunity, because the thing that they're after this time, it's like it would have been really cool if, for example, in this one, it's like, okay, yeah, you get a bunch of money for what you're doing, but it also goes toward like, hey, if you have a kid who's like mortally ill or something, like has a bad illness or a sickness or something, this cures them. Something that makes you say, oh, okay, well, I don't want them to do what they're doing, but it's for a good cause. It's something that makes you, kind of have a little bit of a different, not just as simplified as bad people bad, good people good. I wish they would have done a little better of a job there. As is, though, the action was better. The visual effects in this, absolutely breathtaking how they did this. The cinematography was gorgeous. I think I said very early in the season when I was doing like the preview or whatever, that the one shot that was in the first trailer where the guy's like gliding across the top of the water there, and from underneath, it's like his hand is like over the surface of the water and all that, while he's like swimming with the whale or whatever the hell it was. That part did not let down. There's so many good shots, and the creatures, I think, in this I was a little bit more affectionate toward as well. I really I don't know. I just thought everything was better with this. Again, I can't really. There's really nothing else that I had big major problems with. It's a 9 out of 10 for me. I highly recommend it. If you were okay with the first Avatar, you might like this better. I did, but obviously everybody's going to be different. It's already at $2 billion, so if you haven't seen it, go ahead and see it and get out there and get your opinion on it. So anyway, so that all being said, let's go ahead and jump into the nomination predictions here. And we will, again, like we've been doing the last few times, we'll go ahead and start with the shorts and work our way up to Best Picture. Final predictions. Here we go. For live-action short, I don't think I have any changes here. It's An Irish Goodbye, Le Pupil, Nacum, The Red Suitcase, and Warshaw. And I only really have 2 other films on here that I think have a shot. It's Evalu and The Lone Wolf. Everything else has kind of been pretty quiet in this category. For Doc Short, 38 at the Garden, The Elephant Whisperers, How Do You Measure a Year, Nuisance Bear, and The Flag Makers are my final predictions there. And again, I think I've had those 5 for a little while. Holding Moses, As Far as They Can Run, and American Justice on Trial, People vs. Newton are my other 3 that I'm keeping an eye on there. For the animated short category, I did make a couple changes here from the last video. My 5 are The Boy, The Mole, The Fox, and the Horse, It's Nice in Here, My Year of Dicks, New Moon, and Save Ralph. So I took out The Flying Sailor, and I do have that as the first one that would break in. An Ostrich Told Me the World is Fake, and I Think I Believe It, and The Garbage Man are the 2 that I'm also keeping an eye on in that category. Next up, we get to some of the tech categories. Best Visual Effects. My 5 here, I did make a change. They are All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar: The Way of Water, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, The Batman, and Top Gun: Maverick. I threw Batman in there. I'm not super confident in it, but I just remembered back to the first Black Panther missing out here for visual effects. And remember, this Black Panther we're not thinking is going to do as well as the first one. So if the first one struggled to get into effects, could be the same for the second one. Plus, if the voters, just on the basis of, oh, here's one underwater world that is so spectacular in The Way of Water, if they see Black Panther afterwards, or they look at it again afterwards, they might say, well, it was a lot better in Avatar. So just a feeling I have, a gut feeling on that. So I have that one, though, as the first to break in. 13 Lives I have in there just in case. It is Ron Howard attached to it after all. And then Jurassic World Dominion I'm going to throw in there. I've heard a couple people say that that was one that maybe a couple people at the Bake Off said was okay, so otherwise I didn't really hear too much about the Bake Off this year, so those are my 5. In the sound category, I did make one change here as well. The 5 nominees I have are All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar: The Way of Water, Babylon, Elvis, and Top Gun: Maverick. I did have Everything Everywhere All at Once in there for a little bit, but I took that one out. I think I did not have Elvis in there, or maybe it was All Quiet. But yeah, that's the 5 I have. So Everything Everywhere All at Once is one of my first ones to also keep an eye on. The Batman I have just in case. Black Panther I have in there just in case. And Moon Age Daydream, I don't know if they're going to go for it in doc feature, but it could be a weird kind of reminiscent of the title's it's escaping me. Just a second. From the 90s, Hoop Dreams. Jeez, just about lost it there. Hoop Dreams, because that one was a heavy, much expected nominee there in Doc Feature. There was a big investigation after it didn't happen. It wasn't nominated there, but the Film Editors Branch nominated it for Best Film Editing. So I can see a kind of, maybe not equal scenario, obviously, but sound category, they could go for Moon Age Daydream, but Doc Feature, they don't go for it. And remember, when we get later to Doc Feature, when you have a major subject matter that's very well known, or that is very popular, or sometimes just a documentary that's making money, sometimes that voting group just ignore it and they don't go for it. So we'll probably talk about that a little bit later. Next up, we have makeup and hairstyling. My 5 are Babylon, Blonde, Elvis, The Batman, and The Whale. So I think these are the same 5 I've had for a little bit here. And I only really have All Quiet on the Western Front and Black Panther as the 2 to upset there. So I don't know. I'm okay with those 5. Moving on to the music categories now. Best Original Song is going to be, and I have these, by the way, alphabetically by the song title, so that's how I have this one. Applause from Tell It Like a Woman, Ciao Papa from Pinocchio, Hold My Hand from Top Gun, Lift Me Up from Black Panther, and Natu Natu from Triple R. So, again, I feel like I've had these 5 for a little bit. I think I've actually had these 5 since the short list came out, so I don't know, I could just be wrong. But I do have 5 other ones that I'm going to keep an eye on just in case. Because sometimes when in this category and a couple other ones, when they feel like they're easy, that's when everybody gets them wrong, so we'll see. Carolina from Where the Crawdads Sing, that's, of course, Taylor Swift. Stand Up from Till. You Give Me Strength from Avatar, and that's from The Weeknd. This Is a Life from Everything Everywhere All at Once. I'm putting that one in case Everything Everywhere just goes on a sweep. And Till You're Home, which is from a man called Otto, which actually I didn't know this. A couple people talked about it late. It's actually, I think the lyrics are by Rita Wilson, who is Tom Hanks' wife. Now, of course, we all know Tom Hanks has struggled in recent years, aside from playing Mr. Rogers, to get a nomination. So we'll see if this might be a difference maker. We'll see. For original score, my 5 here, I think, I've had for quite a while, are the Babylon, The Banshees of Inisherin, Pinocchio, The Fabelmans, and Women Talking. I do have 4 other scores that could get in here. All Quiet on the Western Front, Black Panther, Everything Everywhere All at Once, and Avatar, The Way of Water. Avatar, by the way, the score, it was really nice. They had a couple themes from James Horner, who has passed away between the 2 films here. And it was an understudy of his, somebody that helped with some of the adaptations and scoring and stuff. It did the main score for Avatar, and I was like, yeah, it fit pretty naturally. I don't know if the voting branch and the music group will go for it, so I have it as a maybe, but yeah. All right, moving right along to the design categories next. Best Production Design. My 5 are Avatar, Babylon, Black Panther, Elvis, and The Fabelmans. And I do have another 5 that I'm keeping an eye out here, so this could go wrong in a few ways. All Quiet, I have as a big possibility. Glass Onion could sneak in there if they want to go again like Parasite or The Father with something a little more contemporary. Everything Everywhere All at Once I have in there in case that one goes on sweep mode. Pinocchio and The Batman being my 5. And The Batman I really just have in there just because it got the BAFTA nomination. I would be really surprised if that one does get in. Next up is Costume Design. Here my 5 are Babylon, Black Panther, Elvis, Everything Everywhere All at Once, and The Woman King. So I only really have 3 other ones that I'm keeping an eye on here. That's Corsage, Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris, and The Fabelmans. The former of the 2, Corsage and Mrs. Harris, those did make it into BAFTA, so I could see maybe one of them sneaking in over, which one would it be? Probably Everything Everywhere, but I think that one, I just have a feeling about that one, so there you go. All right, for the next tech category is I have this film editing. So this one I have, this was kind of tough to narrow down. And I did make one change, I believe, from the last time we talked about this category. So that's going to be All Quiet on the Western Front, The Banshees of Inisherin, Elvis, Everything Everywhere All at Once, and Top Gun Maverick being my 5. So I'm taking out The Fabelmans, which feels like a massive mistake because it is Spielberg, and editing almost always makes it in there. And I'm blanking right now, but I'm pretty sure West Side Story missed last year for film editing. And I believe if I didn't have it in there, I took it out last second. So we'll see. But just something doesn't feel right about taking that one out. But at the same time, Elvis just feels like a nominee there. Top Gun we know is there. Everything Ever All at Once won at Critics' Choice, so we believe that one's there. And the other two, I think Banshees has shown a little more strength, and All Quiet on the Western Front as a war film, I think that's a gimme to get in. So the Fabelmans not being in there just feels weird, really weird. I also dropped Avatar: The Way of Water, which I think is really close and could break in. Babylon, it's Tom Cross, even though he didn't make it in for First Man, it feels like he could sneak in this year. And Tar, I'm going to throw Tar in there. It was a BAFTA nominee. And in case Tar kind of becomes like The Father, like one of those late-hitting ones where it's just in the last stretch, it starts to pick up more momentum, film editing could be a place it gets in. Next up is cinematography. My 5 here are All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar, Babylon, The Fabelmans, and Top Gun. So I'd thrown in Top Gun, I think, the last time. So I think these are the same 5 I had previously. So it's weird. I thought a lot about Empire of Light and Roger Deakins, and I'm like, okay, I looked through some of his previous nominations, and for his previous nominations, he's had like 12 or 13 of them now, only 2 times, or really only 1 time I looked at, was there a film that the only expected nomination was him, and he made it, and that was Prisoners. Otherwise, you have films like Sicario or The Man Who Wasn't There. I think there might have been one other example, but those 2 I cited for sure. Those 2 at least had nominations through the season. Empire of Light, okay, it did a couple things at BAFTA, and it did get the nomination for Olivia Colman at the Globes. Otherwise, it has been very hard to get that film nominated anywhere. Even the ASCs did not nominate Roger Deakins this time, so again, it feels weird to leave him out, and he could very easily just get in there just on name alone, but I'm taking him out. Okay, the Batman I also have in there. That got a couple nominations this year. Elvis, I think, is very close. That actually is a female cinematographer. She would only be the 3rd in history. So that could do it, but I haven't heard as much buzz about the fact that it's a female cinematographer on that one. Tar I have as a close one. Everything Ever All at Once, again, in sweep mode, could get in there. And Banshees of Inisherin I'm going to throw on there just in case. That one, if it does go into like a sweep mode, if you will, I don't see it picking up like costume design, production design. I don't see it picking up like, it's not in the sound category, so we know it's not going to be there. But I just don't know where else that one could get in, so there you go. All right, next up is some feature categories. Best International Feature, I have All Quiet on the Western Front, Close, Decision to Leave, EO, and The Quiet Girl. I flipped and went to The Quiet Girl. So, believe it or not, I'm not going with Argentina 1985 here. For whatever reason, that one I just dropped it. And it's the Globe winner, and it feels weird, but I just something tells me The Quiet Girl is going to be the voter overlap from BAFTA to Oscars. We know it's going to pop up here and there. This could be a spot that it pops up. So, yeah, and EO is a donkey. It's an animal one, so like Yak in the Classroom last year, I feel like it's going to get in. Decision to Leave, Close. Yeah, I feel like those 2 are... Obviously, everything, I think, except All Quiet on the Western Front has a little degree of vulnerability here, but for whatever reason, Argentina 1985 was the one I chose to drop, which could be a massive mistake, but we'll see. Otherwise, Bardo, Saint-Omer, and Corsage are also 3 that I would keep an eye on here. Next up is Doc Feature. Here my nominees are All the Beauty and the Bloodshed, All That Breathes, Fire of Love, Naval Knee, and The Territory. And the only other 2 I'm really keeping an eye on here is Moon Age Daydream, again just in case, and Descendant. Otherwise, I feel like I've mostly had those 5 for a while. Next up is Animated Feature. My 5 here are Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, My Father's Dragon, Pinocchio, Puss in Boots, The Last Wish, and Turning Red. And again, I've only got 2 as outside contenders here, Wendell and Wild and The Sea Beast. Everything else I feel like is pretty far gone for that category. For Adapted Screenplay, I did make a change here as well. My 5 are All Quiet on the Western Front, Glass Onion, Living, The Whale, and Women Talking. So I dropped She Said. I feel like the wind is out of the sails for that film. Yeah, I just don't have it getting in here. And Living, I looked at it again, I was like, I'm going to be an idiot if I just don't include this one. So I have Living in there, and I have it winning at BAFTA, by the way, too. So I'm like, yeah, let me just put it in. So She Said, I think could still get in, and Pinocchio. I'll still give a little credit to Pinocchio. That could still make it in. It is on the long list for like sound and stuff. So there could be a couple voting branches here and there, but we don't really expect it, where it might just pop up. I believe Production Design also had it long listed as well. On the original screenplay side, I have The Banshees of Inisherin, Everything Everywhere All at Once, Tar, The Fabelmans, and Triangle of Sadness. So I'm pretty confident in these 5. After Sun, I think, is the spoiler, but because it didn't get in at BAFTA, that gave me pause. That really made me, because otherwise I think it does have a chance to maybe get in here, and maybe it could I don't have her listed, but Charlotte Wells could be just a jaw-dropping inclusion at the last second at the Oscars for directing. Again, I think BAFTA would have done it first, but because they didn't, I don't have the confidence to predict it. Decision to Leave, I also threw on there as a possibility in original screenplay, just in case we have, like, Worst Woman in the World from last year. If we have one of those international films that just, for whatever reason, picks up at the last second, Decision to Leave could be one of those, especially after the directing nomination at BAFTA. All right, next up is Best Supporting Actress. My 5 nominees here are Angela Bassett for Black Panther, Hong Chow for The Whale, Carrie Condon for Banshees, and both Stephanie Hsu and Jamie Lee Curtis for Everything Everywhere All at Once. So I was very torn on whether or not Michelle Williams had a chance here, could sneak her into supporting actress, the same way that Lakeith Stanfield all of a sudden went from lead actor to supporting actor and actually got nominated for Judas and the Black Messiah. The difference is, I think, here, and why I'm not including Michelle Williams, is, remember, Judas and the Black Messiah's trajectory going up, leading up to the Oscars was this. It was going up and up. And some people, including myself, thought, hey, when we got to the end of the show, it was like, that could surprise us and get an original screenplay win. It got in, to a couple other categories there and stuff that we weren't expecting. And actually did okay at the BAFTAs for long lists and actually a couple nominations. And The Fabelmans, in the meantime, especially when you start at, like, Toronto, its trajectory is slowly going this way. It didn't do well at BAFTA. Michelle has missed at SAG and BAFTA. So it's like, I don't know. I don't know if they're going to do that, twice in the span of 3 years, where we take somebody who's expected to be in one category and they put them into another one. No. And as much as Michelle Williams is like a 3-time nominee now, and The Fabelmans is one that we know the Academy is watching, something just doesn't feel right and I also, when I looked at it, I couldn't boot Angela Bassett. She seems to have the frontrunner status now after her wins at Critics' Choice and Globes. Hong Chow, The Whale, also has a trajectory that's, again, going this way. So, and she's also somebody who I think the BAFTA and SAG nominations really helped. Carrie Condon feels very safe here. Jamie Lee Curtis feels like if she's not going to win this, which I don't think she will, it feels kind of like, okay, we'll finally give you a break. We'll get you your first nomination on this film. And Stephanie Hsu, in the meantime, she did miss at Globes and wasn't even long-listed at BAFTA, but the Critics' Choice nomination helped. The SAG nomination really helped. So, again, I think the Academy voters are watching that one, and I think she gets in. Plus, personally for me, again, I've said this probably a couple times, but I won't stop saying it. Jamie Lee Curtis should not even be close to in consideration here. I'm sorry. No offense to Jamie Lee Curtis. She's great in other movies. This was not an Oscar-worthy role at all, in my opinion. Stephanie Hsu, 100%, is a worthy nominee here. She's got the more Oscar-friendly role. She has emotional moments. She has everything you need here. I think she gets in. So part of that is maybe just my personal pride, that I want her nominated more than anything else from the film, at least in this category. Now, obviously, when we get to like Ke Quan or the film itself, then I obviously want it nominated. If it's going to lose a nomination anywhere, I would, unfortunately, at that rate, I would have to siphon off probably Stephanie Hsu. But even that being said, I 100% want her nominated. For the other potential spoilers, I do have Michelle Williams listed first, then Dolly De Leon, who got a couple nominations through the season for Triangle of Sadness, Jessie Buckley in Case Women Talking, which has, again, trajectory's been nosediving. Unfortunately, and I haven't seen the film, so I don't know if it's, most everybody I've heard that has seen the film loved it, so I just going off that. But yeah, I'll throw on just in case, Janelle Monáe did get a nomination early in the season for Glass Onion. If that one maybe does a little better than we're expecting, that could get her in. Carey Mulligan got a nomination at BAFTA there at the last second, so I feel like she's still got some candidacy. But again, she said also has a downward trajectory. And then Nina Hoss, I'm going to throw out there as that weird kind of like the supporting actress nomination for Roma could be one of those weird ones where it's like she misses all season and boom, just gets in at the Oscars. If Tar, again, is one of those last films that people are seeing and kind of breaks late here as we get up to the nominations. My screen on my end went blank. Most of the time it does keep recording fine, so I'm just going to do that just so I... yeah, also in case I get a booger or something, you know. Best Supporting Actor. The 5 I have in are Paul Dano for The Fabelmans, Brendan Gleeson for Banshees, Hugh Kwan for Everything Everywhere, Barry Keoghan for Banshees, and Brad Pitt for Babylon. So I'm sticking with Eddie Redmayne, not being, I'm not taking the bait on that one. Again, we've cited many examples in the past, from Timothée Chalamet to Jennifer Lopez to Ruth Negga last year, where it's like if you're the only expected nominee in your film in the acting categories, sometimes you drop. Eddie Redmayne could drop. Then again, he is a previous winner. Brad Pitt is also a previous winner for an acting films or in an acting category. So we also know that Babylon, the voters are more likely to watch that. They might not get through it, but they're more likely to watch that one than The Good Nurse. Even though The Good Nurse is pretty accessible, it is on Netflix, So I get the argument there, but I'm just going to say Brad Pitt gets in. Ben Whishaw for Women Talking I also have as a possibility. Brian Tyree Henry for Causeway could break in. And either Albrecht Such or Daniel Bruhl maybe for All Quiet on the Western Front. Again, if that one is one of the last ones they're seeing and they want to give it an acting nomination, which could happen. Daniel Bruhl is the more well-known commodity. The other guy, Albrecht, did get in at BAFTA, so we'll see. Next up is Best Actress. This was also a really tough decision here. And hard to whittle down to 5. But my 5 are Cate Blanchett for Tar, Viola Davis for The Woman King, Ana de Armas for Blonde, Daniel Deadwyler for Till, and Michelle Yeoh for Everything Everywhere All at Once. So I did drop Michelle Williams and I dropped Margot Robbie. I still think they have a shot to get in, but I'm really worried too because Viola Davis I've not been predicting all season, and I'm throwing her in last minute. This happened to me a couple years ago, 3 years ago now, with Taron Egerton for Rocket Man. I didn't have him in all season. He kept getting in. He basically got in everywhere, maybe minus Critics' Choice, but I feel like he did get in there. I'm just, somebody can fact check me if I'm wrong, but I thought he had made it in just about everywhere, including BAFTA. And then here comes Rocket Man, and it gets one nomination for song, and we're like, oh boy. And it is very reminiscent too of Lady Gaga last year, who felt like the only consistent thing, like she was nominated everywhere. Here comes the Oscars, and she's not there. And House of Gucci only gets it was Makeup. I think Makeup was the only nomination. So it could be that. It could be that. But The Woman King, through the season, though, has not been expected to get like 4 or 5 nominations. Not really. It's only been expected to get 2, possibly 3. With Gina Prince Bythewood also being a possibility there in directing, but we'll see. I'm not super confident that one is in, and it would be tough. It would be tough to get that one in at this point. But The Woman King, though, I think does have a little bit more, that's why I separated off from the other 2. But we'll see. Some of these last-minute changes just bite me in the ass, so we'll see. And Ana de Armas, I also, with Blonde, also very likely, I think, not everybody has it in for Makeup, but the Makeup nomination paired up with Best Actress, I think that helps. I think that helps, too. One other thing, too, I should note, the Razzie nominations came out this morning. Blonde got a bunch of stuff. Obviously, it's too late. We know PricewaterhouseCoopers, they've already tabulated everything, so we know what the nominations are. They're just waiting to announce them. So that doesn't affect it at all. But one key thing, Ana de Armas was not one of the, 8 or 9 nominations for Blonde. So we have seen that happen, where a couple actors, once in a while, they get nominated both at Razzies and the Oscars for the same role, or just get nominated in the same year, like Sandra Bullock did one time. But that, I think, is also a sign of confidence here. So yes, Michelle Williams for Fabelmans, she could just get in, and I could just be, just biting my nails for no reason and just miss it. Margot Robbie for Babylon, I feel like also between her and Brad Pitt, I wanted to keep one of them in there, also because Babylon has the SAG Ensemble nomination, which means there is definitely some crossover there. So that means the actors like the movie enough to give it, they gave it Ensemble nomination over Glass Onion. They gave it over, what was the other one? Woman King. They gave it over The Whale, stuff like that. Possibly some films that might get more nominations than Babylon, especially in the acting categories. So that's worth saying. So I felt like it needed to get something, and I'm like, Brad Pitt just feels a little safer there in supporting actor, too. And I'm also going to mention, I haven't said her name all season, but it's been a very late kind of breaking thing. Andrea Riseborough, though, for To Leslie. It's a film that the studio is not really advertising much. They're not putting a campaign out there for her. This is very much a self-launch campaign, which some of the Gold Derby guys pointed out. There was a actress, Sally Kellerman, back in the 80s for a film called Anna, where the studio also did not really list her. She went out and campaigned on her own. She got the nomination. This is a little bit different. Andrea is not... I believe she is campaigning now to get in, but other actors have been naming her. So it feels... I'm going to name it just in case it happens. That way I don't look completely idiotic, but I just think, especially something like that in an age like this, it's hard to do, number one. Number two, the category is already very stacked without her. Without her, there's 7 people that have been one place or another nominated multiple times through the season. So it is really hard, really, really hard to break in there. If this was like another year where it's like, hey, we've got 2 or 3 consistent nominees. If this was last year, I would give it a better shot. I would say, hey, she might even break in. But as is this year, it's tough. By the way, I know I said that whole sermon about Eddie Redmayne and The Good Nurse and how he's the only expected nominee for the film. Till I get it. It's the same deal. Danielle Deadwyler, though, on the other hand, her performance has been lauded enough. She's been nominated just about everywhere, just Golden Globes missed her. But yeah, I have more confidence in that one getting in. All right, Best Actor is next. And here I have Austin Butler for Elvis, Colin Farrell for Banshees, Brendan Fraser for The Whale, Paul Mescal for After Sun, and Bill Nighy for Living. So, again, it's that tricky 5th slot here that is going to be really tough to nail down. By the way, for the ones that can make it in, I have 6 people listed. So that doesn't really, that gives a lot of possibilities here. Hugh Jackman for The Sun, just in case. He is a previous nominee after all. The Sun did break really late for releasing. I think, again, it was after voting was over, so I don't know if that's not going to help us any. And he's also, I've heard through the grapevine, that he has not been at screenings. He's not been in L.A. campaigning. He's been in New York doing The Music Man on Broadway. So that also does not help him. Felix Kammerer for All Quiet on the Western Front. I know I had him in for a brief minute, but then he was the only person not to get in for All Quiet on the Western Front at BAFTA. Out of the 15 shortlisted categories or long-listed over there, whatever, he was the only one not to make it. But again, just in case, because it is an open slot, it's a film that the voters are getting too late. They could last minute, they could be impressed by it and make it, and he makes it in. I'm going to name Tom Cruise for Top Gun in case that one does overperform. Jeremy Pope for The Inspection. Again, he's only gotten in one place. Adam Sandler for Hustle. He's only gotten in one place. And I'm going to include Tom Hanks in there for A Man Called Otto. Again, that one did break late, but on the opposite side, though, it did break at a time where the box office figures and all the good headlines about that was in time for voting. And again, if this was one of the last ones they got to, I know, again, like we mentioned, he has struggled to get nominated in the last few years for films like Captain Phillips, Saving Mr. Banks, The Post, and there's 1 or 2 other ones that I'm forgetting. Bridge of Spies he couldn't get in for either. So, and also, I don't know if he was like a super heavy favorite, but News of the World he also could not get in for. So, yeah, I'm not sure if this is the one that does it for him, but I'll name it in case it happens. Moving on to the directing category, my 5 here, I don't think I made any changes. They're Edward Berger for All Quiet on the Western Front, the Danielses for Everything Everywhere All at Once, Todd Field for Tar, Martin McDonagh for Banshees, and Steven Spielberg for The Fabelmans. So, yeah, I feel pretty good about these 5. I know they're 5 male directors. I know there's going to be some really bad headlines tomorrow and stuff, but it is what it is. It is what it is, guys. So, for possible other nominations, I'm going to say Sarah Polley for Women Talking, Baz Luhrmann could get in for Elvis. James Cameron has gotten a few notices this year for Avatar. Park Chan-wook got one of those BAFTA nominations, so for whatever reason it's him and not Edward Berger. I'll list him here. I'm going to name him. I don't think it's going to happen, but he did get that DGA nomination, Joseph Kosinski for Top Gun. And by the way, it's always a good rule to go with 4 of the 5 DGA nominees and put one other one in there. That's what I finally did this year. Most of the other years I've just stuck with the 5 from DGA because it's like, we know one year it's going to line up again because it hasn't lined up 5 for 5 since 2009, and that was like Precious, Avatar, Hurt Locker that year. So, and kind of funny that it is James Cameron who's back in there. He didn't get in at DGA this time, so it would be a really weird coincidence. And then Gina Prince Bythewood, I'm going to throw in because she is the only female nominee from BAFTA, and The Woman King, I don't know. It has stuck around. She also got a Critics' Choice nomination, but again, that's with more than 5 nominees in the category. And The Woman King, I don't think it's a super hardcore film that the Academy is watching en masse. And especially the director's branch, which again is a branch that does not like to be dictated to, does not like to be told who to put in. They go with more kookier choices like Edward Berger, like Mikhail Haneke, like Ben Zeitlin sometimes. So I see Edward Berger being the nominee there. All right, finally, I did make one change here for Best Picture. My 10 nominees are All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar, Babylon, Banshees of Inisherin, Elvis, Everything Everywhere, Tar, The Fabelmans, The Whale, and Top Gun Maverick. So I did throw in The Whale and took out Women Talking. I just feel, again, with Women Talking, Trajectory has been doing this. Nothing at BAFTA. The only place it really scored very well was Critics' Choice, and that's, again, almost every category has more nominations than any other place all through the year. It did get that ensemble nomination from SAG, but typically 1 to 2 nominees for ensemble at SAG does not get in for Best Picture, so that rule kind of lines up there. And yeah, it's just... at this rate, there's even some people talking, because that's been one of the favorites all year for adapted screenplay, that could even fall out of that. Not for a nomination, I think it'll still get nominated, but the leader in that category, the one we think could win, that could go to The Whale or something else there. So, especially if The Whale does end up with the Best Picture nomination, Women Talking does not, that hurts. Also, The Whale, again, I have it now getting 5 nominations total, which is a nice round number, 2 acting categories. Majority of them are in these upper echelon categories, the top 8, and 1 tech nomination. So that feels about right. So, that's part of the reason I dropped that one as well. Black Panther, I think, does have a shot here. It is a nominee at PGA this year. Glass Onion was also a PGA nominee this year, so I'll throw that one out there. The Woman King, in case that one is in for directing and actually does surprise us and make it for Best Picture. Though, if there is a film, like we've seen with Foxcatcher, and there's one other example, but it's not coming to mind right now, since they started doing the up to 10, but now with a solid 10. In case there's that split where you have a film nominated for directing but not picture, The Woman King feels like one of those. Same thing happened at Critics' Choice, and that's with 11 nominations, by the way, in the picture category there. And I don't think it's going to happen. Some people are going out on the limb with one of the dark horses, Triple R. They think it has a shot of getting in. I'm going to name it, just so I look like I have maybe like a ever so slightly higher IQ than I did before, in case it does get in. But again, I don't know how much of the popularity of that film is just from online and a few audiences and stuff. I don't know how much of that carries over to the voting members of the Academy and stuff. So it could, and I'm going to name it just in case it happens. It did get a picture nomination and a director nomination from Critics' Choice. Remember, there is no voter overlap there, so that's something to keep in mind. But I don't know. And then since then, Triple R, it got a couple things at BAFTA, but yeah, it hasn't done like extraordinarily well. And again, I don't know if it was eligible or not for DGA, PGA, but it wasn't there either. But again, eligibility would be a key point there. All right, so one final thing I will do here is name off the films with multiple nominations. So we kind of see, okay, who's got the shot to lead nominations or possibly tie for most nominations. And in this case, I do think it is a tie. I think 2 films get 9 nominations each. Those are Everything Everywhere All at Once and Banshees of Inisherin. Also, that's part of the reason why I now say Banshees is in second place over The Fabelmans. Getting 8 nominations next, I have another tie. That's All Quiet on the Western Front and Babylon. I both have getting 8 nominations. Babylon, that does feel a little high, and it could fall out of a couple of those categories, but I don't know. I feel like it's one that they're seeing, and even if it's not one that's universally loved by critics, like Don't Look Up and like Vice and like a couple of these other ones recently, they still get a picture nomination. And most of the time they do okay with nominations in general. And then finally getting 7 nominations, I have again 2 films tying for that 7 nominations. That's The Fabelmans and Elvis. I both have getting 7. So there you go. Otherwise, for other films with multiple nominations, Top Gun I have getting 6. Avatar I have getting 5. The Whale I also have getting 5. Getting 4 nominations are Tar and Black Panther. 3 nominations I have going to Pinocchio. And with 2 nominations each, I have Women Talking, Blonde, The Woman King, Living, and The Batman. So that, I don't know, that sounds about right to me. We get, I think it was 20 or 21 films with multiple nominations last year. part of that was a bleed over. You had some films nominated in like animated feature and documentary feature, or animated feature and international film, I think, or one got into all three, I think, but I can't remember the name of it. But yeah, there was one that got into 3 last year. So sometimes there is that kind of thing that happens there, and that's why we sometimes do see more films getting only 2 nominations. Plus, you get some of those period pieces that can get into both production design and costume design. I don't see that happening much this year. Plus, it feels like a year where, yeah, you're going to have films like Elvis and Banshees and Fabelmans and Everything Everywhere and possibly Babylon and possibly, Top Gun maybe. That, the major ones that the voters watch, if it feels like there's too much to watch, they'll kind of focus on those. And that's why we do sometimes see some of those films overperform Oscar morning. So, all right, I feel like I've said my piece with it. We've been... for about 5 months now, 5.5 months, trying to get these nominations nailed down. And this is it. So we'll be back tomorrow morning with live reactions, and we will... I don't have any time constraints tomorrow, so that'll be good. So we can go ahead and just roll through everything, take as much time as we need to kind of dissect everything and talk about why it happened, or maybe who could benefit from some people missing categories and so on and so forth. Because we always know it's never 100% perfect, but... I don't know, aim for a decent amount. That's what I always do, so there you go. All right, we'll catch everybody tomorrow. Good luck to everybody else out there who is predicting, and we'll see what happens.